Welcome to the Brown Spade Podcast Show. I'm not going to be here long. I got to go for a run. It's early this morning. So I just want to share a little story with you guys. So when we talk about history from a black excellence independence after the Reconstruction era, the first thing we think about is Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. Some of us may even think of Rosewood. But there were several black towns after the Reconstruction that was thriving, very independent, hardworking people. Now, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. And if you live in Georgia, not necessarily in Atlanta, you may have heard of Lake Lanier. So I just want to share a little brief story with you guys. About Lake Lanier. It was a small town, and they covered it up with water. And that town was called Oscarville. Now, it may pop up in your phone, it may not pop up in your phone if you're using the map. Just type in Oscarville and see if it still pops up near Lake Lanier. So let me share this brief story with you guys. They're supposed to be coming out. I just let these people talk. So just go ahead and check this out. I hope you like this video.
Story all new at 5:30. We are taking a closer look at an all-black town in Georgia called Oscarville.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about this on social media for the last few years. And if you haven't heard of it, it's probably because it no longer exists. It's buried under Lake Lanier. 11 Alive's Latasha Gibbons has more.
When we started working on this story, we set out to track down descendants of Oscarville. Weeks later, we found a family who could trace back their roots 4 generations. They shared with us stories that were handed down about what the all-black town was like, including the night that led to its destruction. It was set on fire by night riders after they say a white woman was raped. Then later, it was covered by the body of water we now know as Lake Lanier. May Crow is buried here at this Gainesville cemetery, but the trail of destruction following her death stretches into the land surrounding Forsyth County, buried beneath these waves of Lake Lanier, where in 1912, nearly every black resident was forced out. That includes people living in an old black town called Oscarville. The community was formed in the late 1800s during the Reconstruction era.
There was a very strong community feeling among the blacks. About 300 children that went to some of the schools that were the black schools, and it was closely connected to the churches.
Georgia history teacher Lisa Crosby says Oscarville was a thriving black community, full of carpenters, blacksmiths, and bricklayers, but farming was the top trade.
So they really had kind of a miraculous farming growth here while the rest of the state was really struggling.
But then residents were abruptly forced off their land.
So the flashpoint, I think, is 1912.
This takes us back to the death of May Crow. The 19-year-old white woman was found dead in the woods near Oscarville, presumably after being raped.
Typically, the answer to white girls being raped was go to the black community and just start blaming people.
By nightfall, terror began to reign over Oscarville.
So from there, the rage and hatred in the community, mobs got together and they were called night riders, and they were riding throughout Oscarville and driving out the black community.
And the night turned deadly. They were waking up by fires outside, fire bombs thrown in the church.
Filmmaker Bob Mackey recaptures those horrific nights in an upcoming television series.
Anytime anything happened, guess where everyone would go? To the church. Well, they attacked the church. People were hung, lynched.
Mackey's series features stories of direct descendants like George Rucker, who can trace his family back 4 generations to Oscarville. He tells the story of his great-grandfather, Bert Oliver, and the entire family being forced off their land.
Night riders came through. They had to leave everything. The main thing they left was property, and my grandfather had 100 acres.
Rucker says many relatives died as they tried to flee.
So when they got to the Chattahoochee River, from what I understand, they were told, when the mob got up on the bridge, they were told that they either had to swim or drown. Most of them didn't make it. My grandfather, one of them that did make it, he lost some brothers and sisters.
He says his relatives who survived settled in Gainesville.
From what my mother told me, Bert Oliver, he would sit and tell her this story, and he would just sit and cry.
Crosby says whites in the area took over the remaining properties. She says Oscarville farmers were specifically skilled in raising poultry, which set the pace for Gainesville eventually becoming poultry capital of the world.
You have a farm already going, and you had free land, so you just take it.
Rucker says his great-grandfather married his second wife, Beulah, and they built this school that still stands in Gainesville today. By the late 1950s, the Beaufort Dam was built and Lake Lanier was formed, covering up Oscarville and swallowing most of its history. Many believe Lake Lanier is haunted because of the high number of drownings. We spoke to officials who tell us because there is an entire town that includes structures and even forest areas with trees that are 60 feet tall, it makes it more difficult to navigate through, and someone can easily become trapped in debris, leading them to drowning. We have so much more on this story on our website.
So there you go, family. So next time when you guys are at Lake Lanier on your jet skis, having a good time for your 4th of July's and all this other stuff, just know that underneath that lake, there's a black town called Oscarville. And the sad part of it is, when I heard that story, it reminded me of the Emmett Till. Emmett Till was blamed for, I think, looking at a woman or something. He was accused of looking at a woman or whistling at a woman, something of that nature. And they killed this young man. He was a young man, a young boy. I think he was a teenager. And years later, just recently, just a few years ago, this lady, she confessed and said she made it up. And now they're trying to press charges on her, even though she's at the age of near death. Anyway, so it's crazy. So that it just took me down that path of thinking when he told me that story, because it seems as though even with the Rosewood story, it seems as though when those black towns were thriving, it was some woman got raped, some white woman got raped, and all the nearest whites in the town or the neighboring town at that time, they would all rally up, and it gave them fuel to demolish the city. And I will go as far as say, even if during that time, even if a black person did rape a white person, why didn't you just prosecute the person that did the crime? Why the whole town have to pay? That's the part that I didn't understand. Why did the entire town have to pay for something? But again, it's all fueled by a lynch mob. So that was crazy. So anyway, I'm about to go for a run this morning. I just want to share this little gem with y'all. Some of you guys may know, some of you may not know, but I just wanted to share this little story. And before I go, please press the like button. Please press the share button. Share this with somebody. And for those who haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It costs you nothing. It costs you absolutely nothing. I'm out. Peace.